My name is Aaron Cohen, and what I'm about to share will challenge everything you thought you knew about faith, salvation, and the path to God's heart. I spent nearly my entire life believing that unwavering devotion and strict adherence to every sacred tradition were the only keys to divine favor. But one crisp autumn morning, during a near-death experience that defied all explanation, every conviction I held was shattered in an instant. This is not a tale of despair. It is a story of profound revelation, transformation, and hope. And there was much more waiting to be revealed. I was born as the third of 9 children into a traditional Orthodox Jewish family in a small town where ancient customs were as real as the rising sun. Our family home, built by the steady hands of our ancestors, stood on the edge of vast golden fields and winding country lanes. Every brick and beam echoed the history of generations who believed that every rule was a direct line to God's favor. Even as a toddler, I absorbed the rhythms of life. The quiet recitations of prayer at dawn, the measured cadence of blessings, and the unyielding certainty that every moment was a step toward eternal salvation. And the echoes of that past would soon intertwine with an unexpected future. Every morning before the first light, my family and I rose with the sound of whispered prayers floating in the cool air. My father, Benjamin Cohen, was a man of few words, but his deep, unwavering faith spoke volumes as he quietly led our day with firm, gentle authority. My mother, Hannah, with her ever-present smile and tireless devotion, prepared simple meals and nurtured our souls with soft-spoken guidance. Every task, from sweeping the wooden floors to reciting the blessings before meals, was more than routine. It was a sacred act meant to build a bridge to the divine. And little did I know, that bridge would soon begin to tremble. From my earliest memories, I was taught that salvation wasn't a random gift, it was something to be earned. In our modest schoolhouse, where arithmetic lessons blended seamlessly with timeless teachings of our faith, our teacher, Rabbi Eli, would often declare, "Every rule you obey, every prayer you whisper, brings you closer to eternal life." His words resonated deeply within me, and I began to see myself as a guardian of our heritage, a living testament to the righteousness that would one day secure my place in the divine plan. I took pride in every ritual and every observance, convinced that perfection in practice was the ultimate measure of worth. Yet, a subtle questioning was already stirring beneath the surface. As the years passed, life presented its inevitable milestones with the steady, unrelenting certainty of the seasons. At 21, I underwent our sacred ritual of immersion, a public affirmation of my commitment to our faith. The cold water that enveloped me was not only cleansing, it symbolized a rebirth, a seal of approval bestowed by tradition and community. In that moment, I believed I had proven myself worthy of a life devoted entirely to the Almighty. Soon after, I married Rebecca Rosen, a woman whose inner strength and steadfast devotion mirrored my own. Together, we built a home that, to the outside world, radiated the pure blessing of divine favor. A bustling household, a growing family, and a life steeped in sacred observances. Yet beneath the surface, an unspoken disquiet began to grow. Even as we celebrated our milestones with joyous gatherings and quiet prayers, I sometimes felt an inexplicable emptiness. In the silence of early mornings and the quiet between prayers, a small, persistent whisper questioned whether our strict traditions were the entire truth. I pushed these thoughts aside, convinced that the customs handed down through generations were the only true path to God. Every mitzvah, every ritual, I believed, was a brick laid in the fortress of my salvation. But as the days passed, that whisper would grow louder. Then came that fateful autumn morning, a day that began as unremarkably as any other. The sky was a gentle canvas of pink and orange as the sun crept slowly over the horizon. I had taken up jogging a few years earlier, a modest nod to modern health practices that I justified as responsible stewardship of the body entrusted to me by God. That morning, while running along the quiet country roads that meandered through our farmlands, I felt a strange tightness in my chest. At first, I dismissed it as the natural exertion of my run. But soon, an intense, crushing pain seized me. A pain so fierce and sudden that it stole away every rational thought. And in that moment, destiny was about to intervene. I remember clearly the dramatic shift in the sky as I struggled to catch my breath. The gentle pastels deepened into vivid, fiery hues, as if nature itself were warning me of the monumental change about to occur. Each labored breath brought with it an increasing intensity of pain, as though an unseen force were tightening its grip around my heart. I tried to cry out for help, but no sound escaped my lips. My vision blurred, and the world around me dissolved into a swirling blend of light and shadow. In that instant, I realized I was teetering on the very edge of existence, and the boundary between life and death was about to blur completely. In those agonizing moments, time itself slowed to an almost imperceptible crawl. I began to feel my body slipping away, as if I were being gently unmoored from the familiar world I had always known. The excruciating pain gradually faded into a surreal calm, a stillness that was both eerie and inexplicably peaceful. I found myself drifting into a realm where earthly concerns and physical sensations lost all significance, and my life unfolded before me like an intricate tapestry. Every decision, every ritual, every silent prayer flashed by with startling clarity, forcing me to confront the choices I had made. And then, a deeper revelation emerged from that stillness. Floating in that indescribable state, I became acutely aware of the pride that had slowly crept into my heart over the years. I saw, with painful clarity, how every act of rigid obedience, every carefully observed rule, had served as my way of proving my worthiness. In that weightless void, it all began to unravel. I realized that in my desperate bid for perfection, I had constructed invisible barriers that kept me from experiencing the true, unconditional love of the divine. The life I had known, the meticulous rituals and unyielding discipline, suddenly felt incomplete, as if something vital had been missing all along. And then the darkness gave way to an unexpected light. From the depths of that infinite darkness, a light appeared, not harsh or blinding, but a living, radiant glow that pulsed with warmth and light. The light grew steadily, enveloping me and gradually dissolving the shadows of doubt and fear that had plagued my soul. In that luminous embrace, I felt every trace of my earthly pain being gently lifted away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of peace. And within that glow, I sensed a presence so powerful and intimate that it defied description. And the source of that light was about to reveal itself. Before me stood a figure whose presence exuded an unyielding sense of love, authority, and peace. In the depths of his eyes, I found not judgment but a compassion so profound that it penetrated every barrier I had built around my heart. In that timeless moment, I recognized him as Jesus, not as the distant figure of tradition, but as the living embodiment of grace and mercy. There were no grand gestures or dramatic flourishes. Our meeting was marked only by a quiet, sacred dialogue that transcended all human language. And his words would shatter everything I once believed. In that suspended moment between life and death, Jesus spoke with a calm and gentle voice that resonated deep within me. "You have built your life on a foundation of rules, Aaron," he said softly. "But salvation is not a reward for your works. It is a gift of grace. You have labored to earn what I have already bestowed freely. The pride you have hidden behind your devotion has blinded you to the simple truth. My love is not measured by your performance, but by your willingness to receive it." His words struck me like a burst of pure clarity, slicing through the layers of blind adherence and self-righteous conviction that had defined my life for so long. And with that, my entire world began to change. In that moment, a torrent of conflicting emotions overwhelmed me. Shame flooded my heart as I recognized the weight of my own pride. Relief mingled with a glimmer of hope as I realized I was not beyond redemption, and an indescribable yearning for freedom surged deep within my soul. The rigid walls of tradition that had long confined me began to crumble, revealing a vast expanse of possibility far beyond the narrow confines of rule-bound faith. I understood with startling simplicity that true faith was not about earning God's favor. It was about embracing the unmerited grace that had always been offered freely. And the journey toward renewal had only just begun. Slowly, as the radiant light pulsed around me, I felt the pull of the physical world begin to return. My time in that transcendent realm was drawing to a close. The transition was both jarring and miraculous. Suddenly, the gentle detachment gave way to sharp, searing pain. I became aware of the rough texture of gravel beneath my skin and the frantic beating of my heart as it struggled to re-establish its familiar rhythm. Bit by bit, I was drawn back into the world I had known, forever altered by what I had experienced. And the process of recovery would become a profound part of my transformation. I awoke in a hospital room, surrounded by the sterile hum of machines and the concerned faces of strangers. The physical recovery was expected to span weeks, but the spiritual transformation I underwent was immediate and irrevocable. My first desperate thought was of Rebecca, my beloved wife, whose gentle presence had always been my anchor in life. with trembling strength, I managed to speak of the vision I had witnessed. The vivid, luminous embrace of that other realm and the life-altering conversation that dismantled every rigid certainty I had clung to. I explained, in clear and simple terms, that I had been chasing an illusion of righteousness for far too long, and that the true gift was a love that could never be earned. And soon, the ripples of my revelation began to spread. News of my near-death experience and subsequent transformation spread quickly through our close-knit community. Reactions were mixed. Some met my revelations with skepticism and even fear, while others saw a spark of hope reflected in my transformed spirit. In hushed tones, elders whispered that I had jeopardized the sanctity of our traditions, and meetings were convened to debate the implications of my words. Yet amid the controversy, I began to notice subtle shifts in the hearts of those around me. Curiosity and a quiet longing for truth began to replace the old certainties that had long defined us. And the winds of change continued to stir. Over the following months, my journey ignited what could only be described as a quiet revolution. In our community, once defined solely by rigid observance and unyielding adherence to tradition, a newfound openness began to emerge. Conversations that were once stifled by fear of dissent now blossomed into heartfelt discussions, where questions were met not with condemnation but with compassionate understanding. Even Rabbi Eli, whose teachings had once formed the immutable foundation of our faith, began to incorporate stories of personal transformation and the liberating power of grace into his sermons. And the old ways were slowly giving way to a new vision. Every morning as I awoke, the light of dawn no longer signaled the start of a burdened routine, but heralded a fresh opportunity to live in the freedom of grace. I reflected deeply on that near-death experience with a sense of awe and gratitude. The rigid traditions that once defined me were now seen not as unyielding tests of worthiness, but as opportunities to express gratitude and connect with a love that was already complete. I recognized that the true beauty of our faith lay not in perfect performance, but in the depth of the relationship we could nurture with the divine, a relationship marked by mercy, compassion, and unwavering love. And each new day brought a renewed invitation to change. In the wake of my transformation, I engaged in countless conversations with friends, neighbors, and even strangers who had quietly harbored doubts about the strict dogma of our community. One evening, while sitting with an elderly gentleman whose eyes were filled with both sorrow and hope, he confessed, "For years, I have carried the heavy burden of trying to be perfect. Every mitzvah, every prayer, I believed they were the bricks of my salvation. But now, listening to you, I wonder if I have been building a wall around my heart instead of a bridge to God's love." His simple, honest words struck a chord deep within me, affirming that my struggles were not mine alone but resonated with many who had lost sight of the true essence of divine grace. And the shared yearning for renewal grew stronger. The transformation in our community was gradual yet profound. Traditional gatherings, once characterized solely by rigid recitations of ancient texts, began to incorporate moments of personal reflection and genuine sharing. Younger members, burdened by the relentless pressure to adhere perfectly to every custom, started to smile more freely and voice their doubts without fear. Even the elders, who had long guarded our traditions as immutable truth, softened as they realized that strict adherence alone could never capture the fullness of divine love. And the walls of the old order began to crumble one conversation at a time. During my long weeks of physical recovery, I spent countless hours alone with my thoughts in that quiet hospital room. I replayed the near-death encounter over and over, striving to understand every nuance of that luminous experience. I came to realize that every rigid observance and stern commandment, though born out of a desire for purity, had gradually transformed into a means of self-justification, a way to measure one's worth rather than to simply receive God's unconditional love. The truth finally emerged. Faith was not a checklist of do's and don'ts, but a living, breathing relationship with a divine presence that embraced our imperfections. And the seeds of a renewed spirit were firmly planted. Returning home marked the beginning of a new chapter in my life. Rebecca, ever the embodiment of compassion, listened with tearful eyes as I recounted every detail of my experience. The fear, the overwhelming light, and the life-altering conversation that had redefined my understanding of faith. Together, we spent long, reflective nights discussing what these revelations meant for our family and for our community. Slowly, our home transformed into a space not only of tradition but also of open dialogue and heartfelt exploration, where questions were welcomed and the pursuit of truth was celebrated. And our personal transformation would soon ripple outward. In the months and years that followed, my transformed perspective resonated with more and more people. I found myself drawn into conversations that challenged long-held paradigms and encouraged a more compassionate, inclusive understanding of our faith. One evening, after a community gathering that had unexpectedly turned reflective, a young man approached me with a hesitant smile and said, "I've always felt the crushing weight of having to be perfect. Listening to your story, I feel lighter. I know now that maybe I don't have to earn God's love after all." His sincere words confirmed that the journey toward grace could indeed liberate even the most burdened hearts. And the promise of freedom spread like a quiet revolution. Slowly, a quiet transformation began to unfold within our community. Discussions that once ended in defensive silence now overflowed with hopeful questions. What if our traditions were meant to guide us toward love rather than judge us? Could it be that the true essence of our faith lies not in strict obedience, but in a genuine relationship with God? Even Rabbi Eli, once the steadfast guardian of every rule, started to challenge his own long-held assumptions. His sermons grew warmer, interlacing personal testimony with the promise of renewal, and the once rigid framework of our beliefs began to shift. And every voice in the community began to search for a deeper truth. As the seasons changed, so too did the hearts of those around me. The long-held belief that salvation was earned through relentless effort gradually gave way to the liberating truth that it was, in fact, a gift that needed only to be received with open arms and a humble heart. I watched in wonder as families began to approach our rituals with renewed wonder, embracing the possibility that our ancient customs could become expressions of love rather than burdensome obligations. And each new dawn reaffirmed the promise of grace. I often reflect on that fateful morning when the boundaries between life and death blurred, when I experienced a glimpse of a truth that transcended human constructs. The memory of that radiant light, the echo of Jesus' gentle words, continues to guide me every day. Each time I step outside at dawn and feel the soft glow of the rising sun, I am reminded that every day is an invitation to embrace the grace that has always been ours, waiting to fill our lives with meaning, hope, and unconditional love. And the journey of awakening continues with every sunrise. The road to transformation was not without its challenges. There were moments when the old ways clashed fiercely with the new perspective awakened within me. Friends and family who had once revered the strict observance of tradition found themselves grappling with feelings of confusion and loss. Heated debates broke out in hushed corners of the synagogue. Elders shook their heads in disbelief at what they saw as a dangerous departure from the truth they had always known. I faced criticism and isolation from those who feared that the very foundations of our faith were being undermined. Yet, even amid the conflict, I clung to the certainty that the grace I had encountered was more real than any man-made rule. And the struggle only deepened the call for change. As time went on, I learned that transformation often comes through small, everyday acts of courage. I began sharing my story, not as an indictment of the traditions I had grown up with, but as an invitation to see them in a new light, one that embraced love and compassion above all. I discovered that many in our community had long harbored silent doubts and fears, hesitating to express them for fear of being ostracized. In quiet conversations over tea and during long walks along the familiar country roads, these hidden emotions emerged, and a collective yearning for a deeper, more authentic connection with the divine slowly took shape. And the power of honest conversation sparked a movement of hope. Every shared tear and heartfelt conversation became a stepping stone toward a broader understanding of faith. I witnessed neighbors who had clung to the belief that perfection was mandatory begin to smile more freely, their eyes lighting up with the possibility that God's love was not a reward for flawless performance, but a free gift to be accepted. Even the most ardent traditionalists found themselves questioning whether the stringent adherence to every rule was the only way to honor the sacred. And the quiet tide of change grew stronger with each passing day. I came to understand that the true measure of faith was not found in our rigid adherence to past customs, but in our willingness to embrace a future filled with grace. I learned that the beauty of our customs lay not solely in their unchanging nature, but in their potential to evolve into expressions of genuine love. I discovered that every ritual we performed could serve as a reminder of the infinite gift of grace if we opened our hearts to it. And the promise of renewal shone brightly in every act of devotion. Today, as I stand before you, I am a living testament to the transformative power of grace. My life, a tapestry woven with threads of ancient tradition, personal struggle, and miraculous revelation, has become a beacon of hope for those yearning to break free from the chains of perfection. I no longer measure my worth by the strictness of my deeds. Instead, I rejoice in the realization that salvation is not something to be earned but a gift to be received with gratitude and humility. and my journey is far from over. I invite you now to reflect on your own journey. Look deep within your heart and ask, are the traditions and rules you follow drawing you closer to the love of God, or are they erecting invisible walls that keep you from experiencing His true embrace? There is a freedom in realizing that faith is not a burden to be borne, but a grace to be celebrated, a grace that transforms even the most rigid practices into expressions of divine love. And the invitation to explore this truth is open to you. In sharing my testimony, I do not claim that the old ways are entirely wrong. Rather, I offer a new perspective, one that honors our heritage while inviting us to experience it in a richer, more dynamic way. Our customs are not meant to confine us. They are meant to be living expressions of our gratitude for a love that is already ours. Imagine a faith where every ritual is a celebration of life and every prayer a heartfelt conversation with the divine. And the vision of a renewed faith beckons us all. Thank you for joining me on this deeply personal journey, a journey that reshaped my understanding of faith, redefined my relationship with God, and continues to inspire me every day. My story is a testament to the truth that salvation is not measured by our deeds, but by the infinite love we receive. If my experience resonates with you and sparks a flicker of hope or curiosity, I urge you to share it with others and join in spreading this message of boundless grace. And the movement for change grows with every heart it touches. Before I leave you, remember this: every morning brings a new beginning. As the sun rises and bathes the world in gentle light, let it remind you that each day is an invitation to start afresh, to release the burdens of the past and to embrace the liberating truth of grace. No matter how rigid the path may seem, there is always room for renewal, and your journey toward truth is only just beginning. And with every dawn, a new chapter awaits you. If you've ever felt weighed down by the pressure to be perfect, if you've ever questioned whether the path you're on truly leads to the heart of God, know that there is hope. My journey has taught me that embracing grace means letting go of the fear of failure, accepting that love is not conditional on our performance, and realizing that true salvation is already within our reach. The invitation to experience this liberation is yours to accept, and your own transformation is waiting to unfold. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my story, a story that has reshaped my life and continues to inspire me every single day. If you feel moved by what you've heard, please like, share, and subscribe for more inspirational content. Your support means the world to me, and together we can spread the message that salvation is not about what we do but about the love we receive. May you always find strength in the knowledge that you are loved unconditionally, and may your journey be filled with light, hope, and endless grace. And the legacy of grace is yours to carry forward.